Welcome to Wine Soundtrack USA. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world in 30 answers. Discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends of Wine Soundtrack. This is Allison Levine, and I'm here today with Peter Velleno, the winemaker at Castello di Amorosa, this beautiful castle in Calistoga in the north of Napa Valley. Welcome, Peter, and tell us a little bit about yourself and where we are today.
Hi, thanks for the discussion. My name is Peter. I've been here about 10 years. Started back when Dario just had this place open just for a short time and came on board under Brooks Painter, the director of winemaking, and worked my way up through a couple different job titles and been winemaker for a couple of years now. And it's really an interesting place to work. We make a lot of great wines, but it's not just another winery. It's really something spectacular we have going here.
How many acres are you working with, and are you working only with estate fruit or purchasing fruit as well?
We work with both. This property has about 30 acres that are planted. We have a number of other estate properties that our company owns and operates elsewhere in Napa, in the southern end of the valley, down in Coombsville, down in Carneros, over in Mendocino County. And we also purchase fruit from a number of different places that are a little bit further away, or kind of specialty properties that you simply can't acquire if you wanted to.
Now, Castello di Amorosa is a big Italian castle, and the name is Italian. Is it fair to guess you do Italian varieties? And if so, which ones, and anything else?
Yeah, so being in Napa, we certainly make all the kind of classic Napa Valley varieties. We make a lot of Cabernet Sauvignon, making Chardonnay as well. But we also make some of the Italian varietals. Sangiovese is one of our major red wines that we make here. We grow that right here on this property, as well as a couple others, and we blend them together. Some of our white wines that we make, Pinot Grigio, Pinot Bianco, Vermentino, the list goes on and on for our varieties. So we're making both kind of the classic Napa Valley varieties, as well as some that grow in other places, like Zinfandel from Russian River Valley, Pinot Noir from a number of locations. One of our estate vineyards is up in Mendocino County. We make our Anderson Valley. We have our Morning Dew Ranch property, which is also in Mendocino County. And so we look around and just kind of try to source the best grapes that we can get, whether it's around here or not around here. This property is only red grape varietals, and then our white wines are grown in some cooler areas.
And do you think that there's a perfect variety out there?
No, I would say not. It really depends on what you're trying to achieve. There may be a perfect variety for a particular plot of land, but that also changes with the climate, and what works well one year in a wet, cold year may not work so well in a dry, hot year. So you're kind of better off hedging your bets a little bit, plant a few different places, have some diversity both in what's growing on your property and also the different properties that you work with if you're able to.
What is your very first memory of wine?
Well, I grew up in San Francisco, and my parents would drink wine. I wouldn't say they would drink a lot of really, really fine wines, but I was exposed to it at a younger age. It never really resonated with me as something I would ever think about pursuing. It wasn't until I went up to school at UC Davis and started taking some winemaking courses that I really became interested in it, and that really sparked my interest going forward. And one of the not the first memories of wine, but more significant ones, was the first time that I had a bottle of wine after taking some of those classes, and really got me thinking about how it was made. And that is what sparked my interest in winemaking. I would consider more significant than any memory I had about wine previous to that.
What did you want to be when you grew up, when you were a kid?
Some kind of engineer. That's what I was doing. I came from a family of engineers. That's what one of my brothers did, my father did. I was a little more drawn to the life sciences, so when I went up to UC Davis, I was in chemical engineering, and thinking that would kind of bridge the gap between engineering and design and the fields of chemistry. As I was doing it, it wasn't really sitting with me as something I wanted to do forever, and that's when I started exploring other things. So I would say what I wanted to do when I grew up didn't get me to where I am now, except that it landed me in a college that offered winemaking classes, and then the rest is history from there.
It's a pretty good history. Good place to end up. So what do you think that someone who doesn't drink wine loses out by not drinking your wine?
Well, our wine always starts with the experience coming to the castle and enjoying the beautiful Napa Valley, the hospitality that we offer, this unique atmosphere, and then my job is to create wines that are that can be showcased in such spectacular fashion here. So I would say the first thing they're missing out on is actually coming to the castle, because it's a really fun spot to go. And a lot of people may start that way, and then that gets them introduced to trying the wines, and it opens up a whole new world for them. And there's so many different varieties and nuances, and every producer approaches it a different way. And there's just, I don't know, you really have to expose yourself to wines. And for some people it really clicks, and some people not so much. But I feel, especially at this winery, we make so many different varieties and different styles that I really think that everybody would be able to find a style that they will come to love.
So, traveling the world and exploring wine, where have you explored and found the best wines, and also the worst? Or particularly the worst wine you ever drank, if you recall that?
The worst wine I ever drank was something I probably made in school. Pretty bad. Part of the reason for that was we weren't exactly given the primo grapes to work with like we would now. So I will blame that rather than our limited skill level. Spent some time in France and trying the wines over there, and just really it's interesting to see how you can take the same variety and grow it someplace differently. The white Burgundies, the Chardonnays that I've tried over there were really different than our California style Chardonnays, and I really enjoy that. You can't make those wines here, just like they can't make our style over there. And I think that's part of what makes wine special, is that it's not just different for different people, but different areas and different years, and there's never going to be the same thing twice. And that's part of what's so fascinating.
Absolutely. Do you use social media?
I don't do it too much. I don't want to get in trouble for using it at work. And if you're not on it all the time, then you fall behind, so it's not even worth trying.
Do you handle the social media for the winery?
Not so much. No, I will participate in whatever they want me to participate in. I'll take pictures of whatever I see that may be interesting and send it, and our company will send it out collectively. And I will write blog postings and things like that, but that's not my primary job.
If they wanted to run an ad about this wine and wanted to put your face on the label, how would you feel about having your face on a label of wine?
Well, I would want to feel that it was my wine and my brand. I don't know. The face of the winemaker is not. The winemaker doesn't have everything to do with the wine. It's also the winery, and it's the vineyard. So if I own the winery and I own the vineyard and I farmed it and I made it, I guess I'd be okay with that. But I can't say that I really see that happening. I'm happy with the big castle on the label. We're pretty proud of that.
If space aliens were to land here on the property, and it is the kind of property where you could imagine something like that happening, what wine from the cellar would you give them to take and taste?
Am I trying to please them or get them to go away?
Oh, I don't know. That's up to you. Depends on the kind of aliens you think they are.
I guess I would just go with our old standby, which is the Il Baroni, which is our reserve Cabernet Sauvignon. It's one of the original flagship wines for the castle, and was one of the first wines that Dario created here when he started the winery. So I would say that that's probably our go-to, what I consider the flagship, and what I think best represents our winemaking ability and also the spectrum of vineyards that we work with.
Each vintage tells a different story. Would you agree with that?
Of course.
And do you think that there are sometimes more things that repeat themselves or not when it comes to vintage variation?
I would say more things that repeat themselves. You're going to have cycles of cold weather and hot weather and drought years and wet years, and you'll definitely see things where you might say, oh, this year was very similar to 2014, or if it's really wet, then you say, oh, that's a lot like 2011. So I think there's a lot of parallels to be drawn, and that's important for winemaking, because you see the grapes, and you have to be able to project what you think that wine is or those grapes are going to turn into when they turn into wine, so that you can plan accordingly, make appropriate blend decisions, what kind of barrels to use. So we do a lot of thinking about, if this was similar to such vintage, that wine turned out a certain way, this is probably going to turn out that way, so you kind of act accordingly. And sometimes you set your own fate. It may not, you can have some influence on the wine. Left on its own, you kind of never know how it'll turn out. We always have some input.
Do you capture any signs or omens each year that will predict the outcome of what a harvest will be?
There's timing. Is it an early year? Is it a late year? This year it looks like it's going to be a little bit later than last year, but every year seems to be pretty early these years. It's always pretty early. What the vineyards look like? Are they really growing crazy, or are they not growing so fast? The crop load on an individual vine is something you can definitely look at and say it's going to be a high yielding year, and then maybe a slow ripening year. If there's a lot of fruit to ripen, it's going to take a little bit longer. You can look at the ground, see if there's a lot of cover crops or weeds that are growing, give you an idea of how much moisture is in the water or in the soil.
Do you have any good luck rituals that you repeat each year for harvest? Maybe that lucky T-shirt or or something else?
Not so much. Our goal is finish bottling before we start picking grapes, and if we can do that, it's usually a good sign. That's more production oriented.
When you're not working, how do you spend your free time?
Mostly with the family. I have a couple of kids and my wife down in Napa. We live in the city of Napa. My kids are 6 and 9 years old, so they keep us pretty occupied. So spending time with them inside and out, and visiting family not too far away. My wife's family's over in Marin County, which is 30 minutes one way. I'm from San Francisco, and my parents are still there, so we spend a lot of time with our family, both in Napa and elsewhere.
Any sports you like to play?
Yeah, I play, when I was in college, I played lacrosse, and I play tennis, and do some biking, played baseball in a past life. These days, it's kind of whatever I can get my kids to do, so it's usually t-ball with my son, and my daughter's starting to think about playing tennis, so I'm trying to push her that way.
And for those rare romantic evenings you get with your wife, what wine do you order?
Usually order sparkling wine, because when we go out, we usually are going to buy it by the glass, and we don't normally open sparkling wine at home. So when we go out, we always kind of go for something that we don't have all the time. So sparkling wine is usually what we're getting.
Some people read tea leaves at the bottom of a cup. And if you could read what the bottom of a red wine glass told you, what would you want it to say?
Well, if it's a red wine, I'd like to barely be able to see it, first of all. You want that wine to be dark in color. That's a signature of California wines in general, but especially Napa Valley Cabernet. You want that really dark, inky color. I don't mind seeing a little bit of sediment at the bottom of the glass. It means that the wine has been aged for some period of time, which is a good sign. Also, it wasn't overly processed by the winemaker, and that's kind of our strategy here. Don't do more than you need to. You walk kind of a tightrope of wanting our wine to, not be a big cloudy mess, but at the same time not over processing it such that we strip out flavors and aromas. So it's a fine line, and so I'm always somewhat pleased when there's just a little bit of sediment in there. It's a kind of the perfect amount where you didn't over process, but you also didn't set yourself up for kind of a mess in the bottle.
So a couple quick ones: red, white, or rosé?
What time of day is it?
Still or sparkling?
I prefer still wine.
For sparkling, champagne or somewhere else in the world?
I really enjoy California sparkling wines, but champagne is great too. Around here, I get exposed to a lot more of the California wines, and I really enjoy trying wines from producers I know, or winemakers I may have heard of or seen on the news. And I learn a lot more about what they're doing out here, and if I really like something, I can find out more about it if it's a local one. And there's so many wines to try that you simply can't get tired of that.
Very true. With pairing wines, do you follow the rules, or do you like to break rules? Red wine with fish, white wine with meat. Do you think those rules apply?
I think they do apply as far as if something's really sour, it's going to impact the way a wine tastes. If a wine is really sweet, it may not balance too well. I kind of frame it around, I really want to drink this wine, so I'm going to just make it work. Or if there's a wine I really want to try or have been excited about opening at home with my wife or my family, I'm going to open it no matter what. What I may change is when we do that. Do I do it before dinner, after dinner, or during dinner? If I want to try something, I'm going to find a way to work it into the night somehow.
Do you have a favorite movie about wine? Not
really. I think it's probably true of many industries. When you're in it, you find so many kind of flaws and unrealistic portrayals that it's kind of hard to get excited about anything. But no, I don't. I wouldn't say I've watched too many different movies on wine.
Do you have a favorite music group, singer?
Yeah, I think probably my all-time favorite is probably Garth Brooks, which coming from San Francisco and liking a country artist, probably they didn't quite go together, but we never quite fit in the city anyway. We always found a way to be outside or go camping or leave the city and drive around the country with my family. So but I would say he's probably my favorite all-time artist.
Do you have a favorite sports team?
I would say the Giants. That's from birth. I was raised to love the Giants, but Giants, 49ers, and Warriors are my three teams that I would go with.
And if one of your teams were to win the big game, what bottle of wine would you give them?
I would probably go with our sparkling wine. That seems to be the most appropriate. We make a Spumante del Castello, which is it's made Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, made classic Champenois style, so made just like a sparkling French sparkling wine, French champagne.
And if a VIP was photographed by paparazzi in a restaurant, and there was a bottle of your wine sitting on the table, which celebrity would you want it to be? Or famous person?
Everybody is so controversial now. I don't know who to pick. I'd probably say Steph Curry on the Warriors. Everybody seems to like him. I really do. He's such a fun guy. Seems like a really nice player. And I would think if he's pouring your product, that's a good sign.
What is the best piece of advice you were ever given?
We have a saying in my family that I grew up with, and that's if somebody asks you if you're ready, you just say, I was born ready. So that's how I grew up. My dad always taught me just be ready for anything. And it kind of comes from being in the Boy Scouts as well. I was an Eagle Scout growing up, and you were always to be prepared. But in my family, it's being born ready. So there's nothing, expect anything, whatever happens, just be ready for it. And that translates to every day, every aspect of your life. And, just be ready for it and you'll be okay.
So can you complete this sentence for me? A table without wine is like?
A table that has beer on it?
Okay, well, at least there's something on the table.
There might be something on it.
So if you were going to outer space, to a deserted island, there were no wine stores there, what are 3 wines you would take with you?
Well, I guess I'd want to pick something that would age for a really, really long time. so some kind of Napa Cabernet, similar in style to our Il Baroni, but not necessarily. I really enjoy trying other people's wines, but I would say some kind of high-end reserve tier Cabernet that I could put it all away and come back in 10 years. Probably something that's on the lower alcohol side that I could, get through my days with, like a nice rosé. This rosado that we have over here on the table, a little bit on the lower alcohol side. That could be maybe a French rosé or a California rosé made in this style, and then probably some kind of a Chardonnay, maybe a little bit on the richer, oakier side. That is pretty versatile wine, in my opinion, and can be drunk on its own or kind of pair across whatever you need to. Where
in the world do you still want to explore as a winemaking region?
Well, I need to go over to Italy, so I'm hoping I can do that next year and get over there, but that's what's next on my list.
Fantastic. Well, Peter, I want to thank you for joining us, but before we finish, we play one little game here. It's called Wine Soundtrack, so music obviously plays a big part in this. As we're sipping a little rosé here, what music would you want to be listening to in the background What inspires you with something like a crisp, refreshing rosé?
Well, with rosé, I would say for me, this wine, it makes people feel comfortable. It's happiness right there in your glass. I would say something kind of upbeat, maybe an old John Denver song, Leaving on a Jet Plane, something like that, where it's easygoing, easy listening. It's bright. It's going to put you in a good mood, and I think that kind of a song would go well with a wine like this.
And with a big, rich, dark Cabernet.
Cabernet makes me think of the classic symphony music, big symphony orchestra playing something by Beethoven. That's what I think about. I won't say I necessarily listen to that all the time if I'm drinking Cabernet, but that's what I think about. All these instruments all working together and playing something powerful at the same time. It could be sweet and subtle, and a big Cabernet blend does that for me. It's a bunch of different components all working together that separately are okay, but together are so much more, and for me that's a Cabernet blend.
And last one, Sangiovese.
Sangiovese, it would be something Italian. Maybe Tony Bennett. Okay. California. California, United States based music, but a little bit of Italian, and the whole Italian-American vibe. Very much how Dario grew up here, and so I would say that would be well placed.
Well, fantastic. So, Peter, thank you for joining us today on Wine Soundtrack. And before we go, if you can just let everyone know how they can visit or find Castello di Amorosa wines.
Well, if they end up in the Napa Valley and say, where's the castle, everybody is going to know where to point you. But you can go to castellodiamorosa.com, and you'll find everything you need to on our website.
And are the wines available in stores or restaurants?
No, they're not. That's one of our kind of founding doctrines here, is that the wines are only available here at the castle. So once people come here, or if they get familiar with the wines or they want to order them, we can ship to just about anywhere. They can join our wine clubs, and we'll deliver various wines to them on some schedule every month of the year. That's actually one of the ways to try some of our lesser-known wines that aren't available even in our tasting room here if they join our wine club. But the best way is to come to the castle and really experience what we have to offer here.
Well, thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack USA. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.